What if King Solomon's wisdom could be turned into a simple money system? Not a get-rich-quick trick, not a flashy investing strategy, not a complicated formula that only experts can use, but a clear, practical rule for everyday people who want real success. That is what this episode is about. King Solomon's wealth principles teach us that money must be managed with intention. And the 33% rule gives us a simple framework. 1 part for giving, 1 part for saving or investing, and 1 part for living wisely. Now, the exact percentages are not the main point. The real point is this. Money needs structure, because without structure, money becomes stress. Without wisdom, income can disappear. Without discipline, abundance can turn into confusion. Without order, even a large amount of money can fail to bring peace. Solomon understood that wealth is not only about how much you have. It is about how wisely you handle what you have. King Solomon's approach to wealth begins with a basic truth. Money is not just possession. It is stewardship. That means wealth is something entrusted to you, not something that defines you. When a person sees money as a tool, they can use it well. When a person sees money as identity, they become trapped by it. Solomon's wisdom consistently points us away from greed and toward responsibility. He teaches that the wise person thinks ahead, acts with discipline, and avoids foolish habits that damage the future. That is why the 33% rule fits so well. It creates order. It reminds us that every dollar has a purpose. And when money has a purpose, the heart feels calmer. The 33% rule is powerful because it simplifies financial wisdom. Many people do not fail because they do not earn enough. They fail because they do not organize what they earn. Money without a plan tends to leak away. Money without boundaries gets consumed by impulse. Money without direction gets spent emotionally, but a 3-part structure changes everything. It gives you a framework for balance, 1 part for generosity, 1 part for security, 1 part for life. That is a very Solomon-like idea, because Solomon's wisdom is always about balance rather than extremes. He is not teaching us to hoard everything. He is not teaching us to spend everything. He is teaching us to live wisely, and wisdom always creates order. The first part of the 33% rule is giving. This matters because money should never make the heart closed. A generous life keeps wealth healthy. When you give, you remember that money is not your master. You remember that blessing is meant to flow through you, not just to you. You remember that the purpose of abundance is bigger than personal comfort. Solomon often connects righteousness with generosity. A wise person does not cling tightly out of fear. A wise person understands that generosity is part of a well-ordered life. Giving also protects you from greed. Greed says, keep everything. Wisdom says, use what you have with purpose. Generosity turns money into service. It turns wealth into blessing. It turns possession into meaning. The second part of the 33% rule is saving or investing. This is where Solomon's wisdom becomes very practical. The wise person thinks about the future. The wise person prepares in advance. The wise person understands that stability does not happen by accident. Saving is, not fear. Saving is faithfulness. It means you respect tomorrow without worshiping it. It means you create margin so that one hard month does not destroy your peace. Investing wisely can also fit here because wise growth requires patience. Solomon's wisdom is never rushed. It is steady. It is deliberate. It is grounded. That is why this part of the rule is so powerful. It teaches you to build strength, not just spend strength. A person with no reserve lives under pressure. A person with reserve has room to breathe. And room to breathe is one of the quiet blessings of wisdom. The final part of the 33% rule is for living expenses and responsible enjoyment. This is important. Because wisdom is not only about restriction, it is also about healthy living. You are allowed to eat. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to enjoy your life. You are allowed to use money for legitimate needs and healthy comfort. But Solomon would remind us not to let consumption become the center. The goal is not to worship simplicity. The goal is to maintain order. This part of the rule teaches discipline in daily life. It reminds us that spending should be intentional, not emotional. It reminds us that enjoyment is best when it is controlled. It reminds us that freedom comes when expenses are aligned with values. A wise person lives well without being ruled by impulse. One reason this episode matters is that Solomon repeatedly warns against foolish financial behavior. He warns against laziness. He warns against haste. He warns against debt. He warns against greed. He warns against talking more than working. He warns against chasing quick gain. All of these warnings fit perfectly with the 33% rule, because the rule is really a way of saying, do not let money become chaotic. Money becomes dangerous when it has no boundaries. Money becomes stressful when it has no assignment. Money becomes wasteful when it has no discipline. Solomon's wealth principles are not about making life harder. They are about making life clearer, and clarity is priceless. One of the deepest insights in this episode is that balance creates peace. People often think peace comes from having more, but often peace comes from knowing what to do with what you already have. When your money is divided wisely, your mind does not have to carry unnecessary chaos. You know what goes where, you know what is available, you know what is protected, you know what is set aside, you know what is already spoken for. That structure reduces anxiety, and that is exactly why Solomon's wisdom is so valuable. He knows that financial disorder creates emotional disorder, but wise order brings peace. The 33% rule is not just about budgeting, it is about calming the heart. If we pull all of this together, King Solomon's true wealth principle is not simply make money. It is to handle wealth with wisdom. That means give with purpose, save with discipline, spend with restraint, and never let money rule your heart. This is the kind of wealth that lasts, not only because it protects your finances, but because it protects your character. A person can have income and still be poor in wisdom, but a person with wisdom can build something lasting from almost anything. That is the Solomon difference. Wisdom multiplies what money alone cannot. So what is the real power of the 33% rule? It is that it turns money into a tool for wisdom. It gives structure to your resources. It gives peace to your mind. It gives direction to your future. And it reflects the kind of balanced thinking that King Solomon taught. The world tells us to chase more. Solomon tells us to manage well. The world tells us to spend now and worry later. Solomon tells us to think ahead. The world tells us that success is measured by accumulation. Solomon tells us that success is measured by wisdom. And that is why this simple rule matters. Because when wealth is ordered, life becomes more peaceful. When money is managed wisely, the heart becomes more stable. And when the heart becomes stable, a person is freer to live with purpose. That is the wisdom of King Solomon. That is the power of the 33% rule. And that is how financial peace begins. If this content blessed you, please subscribe, leave a comment, and like this video so more people can be encouraged.